Welcome to Two Caps and a Coffee, a podcast where two friends are chatting about the topics that matter most to us over a cup of coffee, bringing you into the conversation. I'm your host, Kaiden.
And I'm Renee.
And today we're talking about when do you need to change your environment. So Renee, when do you need to change your environment?
I think that this question is really, like, you start to feel it when you start, I guess it's like when you wake up one day and you're like, this isn't what I want anymore. And it could be a relationship, it could be your job, it could be your apartment or whatever. Just like that realization that you're no longer content with where and what and how much of what you have. And then you're like, okay, I need to make a change or things like that. And I'm personally feeling that at work. Like, I know that I want to pivot to something that is more in alignment with where I like see myself going, my professional career, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, in terms of like making that decision, it could be a long road. Like in the past, I would have maybe, I don't know, just like been upset about it for a long time, or
Yeah.
due to the nature of our work, it's like, okay, if I'm not like loving the like role that I'm in right now, I would just have to wait a couple months and then apply for a different role and, you know, wash, rinse, and repeat or whatever. But now that I'm in the quote unquote real world where there isn't like term lengths for most jobs, like if you want to move on to something else, like you have to take that complete ownership over that decision. Like it's not like I'll just wait or whatever. It's like, no, I need to be responsible for that. So I want to start off there. Like that's kind of like where I'm feeling the discord in my life is like I want to have a new position. I also want to move to a different country and things like that. And I think it'd be nice if we just talk about our decision making process and you know, if you are feeling like you want to like pivot somewhere in your life, like what inspired that and like what are you looking forward to in your new position. So I can like kind of volley it back to you. It's like, are you feeling any needs to change your environment, or if you recently changed your environment, what inspired that shift?
So for me, I definitely feel that way. I felt that way for the past 2 years now, essentially. So I started living in North Austin in Cedar Park, and like right before the pandemic hit. I moved there in January, and I thought I was going to really enjoy it. It was kind of like on the slight outskirts of Austin. I thought I was still going to have like a great city life, and I still just like feel slightly out of it, so I didn't have to necessarily live in the city and stuff because I never have been like in a suburb area before. But then it's like this dark shadow that's like creeping and crawling up on you. I feel like, and at first you're like, oh, this is just a minor inconvenience. It's fine. And for me, I tell myself, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, until I realize I'm saying it's fine every 5 seconds instead of just like doing something about it. You know what I mean? Like I should have moved, like I should not have extended my lease for 2 years or whatever. I should have just moved and just been done and happy with it. But in November in 2021, I moved here to South Austin to be closer to downtown and be able to engage with the city a lot more than what I have been over in North Austin. But like on the topic of when do I need to feel a change in my environment, I just changed my environment, and I'm already thinking about like changing more. I'm a type of person that I change one thing, and honestly, I really want to change everything. Like I'm not a. I recognize something's out of a line from what I want, and then I'm like, okay, this is out of a line. So this that I wasn't focused on is now looking different. This is now looking different, and I just want to almost like a chiropractor, just pop it all back, readjust.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
No, pop, 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 pop. That's really how I feel about it. So like, right now I'm also changing jobs, hopefully soon. And I'm in that process of like finding a place that I feel like I could really not have to adjust so much, and it
Yeah.
gives me a lot more freedom, especially because of the time, the Great Resignation, where the power is really put into the employee's hands versus an employer, which is great, in my opinion. But Renee, how do you know when you need to change? Like, do you have warning signs that you've been like able to see? What do you like? What clicks for you?
Okay, I will answer that question, but before that, I want to like just nestle into that Great Resignation
Oh yeah.
thing. In my work, I've been like traveling around, like interacting with a lot of people who are in C-suite and things like that, and they always talk about like, oh, it's a time of the Great Resignation, like no one's staying anymore. Millennials and Gen Z are like, consistently changing their jobs, and there's no loyalty and blah blah blah. And in my head, it's like it's COVID inspired. Like people have been obviously like starting new jobs and quitting like forever, but in the world that we're living in now, some people have lost their families, their way of life, their homes, their health, and it's so ridiculous to me that I don't know who coined it or what area coined it because there's like the Great Resignation, the Big Quit, and it's just like
Oh
no,
yeah.
it's like people are waking up and people are deciding that I'm not content with just like getting up, hating my life and my job, and then going to sleep and then waking up to do the same thing. Like I don't want to hate my life for 8 hours of the day. Like that's a third of my life spent just being sad or depressed. And I think that, these companies are like, oh my God, these people just are not sticking around. I wish they would be like, why aren't people sticking around? And instead of being like, oh, it's the big quit, we need to like hire faster than people quit. It's like maybe you just spend more time in exit interviews because people are giving 2 weeks or 2 weeks notice, a month notice because no one wants to be known as like the one who left on bad terms because like you might need a reference from this job in the future. And if we just stopped seeing people leveling up or choosing something that is more in alignment with what makes them happy as a personal reflection of our validity as a company, validity as a leader, or whatever, I think that, I don't know, people wouldn't feel so bad about changing. So, anyway, I just like, I've been hearing about this topic for the past 3 weeks and people who are like just so detached from like the associate level that they are just like always most of the times is in a very negative light when they talk about this. So I just wanted to speak my piece on that. But in relation to like how do I know I need to change? Like what are the beginning signs or signals or whatever? I almost always find that when I start something new, I feel really good because like I believed that starting of a new thing was going to be the key to making me feel more satisfied because I obviously was leaving something else because of like a lack of satisfaction or maybe situation changed and it now called for a new, configuration of things. Whatever. So back in May, I was leaving my previous position. And I was like, okay, it's COVID times. I've been wanting to move to Portland for the past like XYZ years. Let's just take the leap. Like, I have nothing to lose. And knowing me, like after the little Capricorn episode, ain't no way in hell I'm gonna move to a new city without a job.
Right.
I'm gonna collect the bag no matter what. Like I'm not gonna like oh the city sucks because no babe. Before you move, collect the bag, collect the contract that says you
Be
are.
smart about it. Like, don't.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. So I did that, and I made the move. But for me, in my current position, because in the past it was prompted by a timeline, a deadline. So I needed to leave this city or this position by a timeline that was set with the team or whatever, because it was term length roles. But now in this position, I'm like, okay, I'm living in Portland. I don't even know if it's like what I was expecting. I think I put so much weight on Portland being, oh, a fun city where I can like, explore myself and be like my hippy dippy self or whatever. And hello, it's still COVID. Like, what am I ever doing? Like, running around with like a bunch of like fucking flower petals, like la 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 la.
Yeah. It doesn't really solve that main issue that you were like experiencing is that
Yeah.
it's COVID times. Like, yeah.
Like just because I moved doesn't mean that COVID was like, girl, you know what? I'm moving on too.
We wish.
It's like if I could have that power, it's like, you're done. I've seen what I needed to see, and you're done. But like, yeah, no, what I realized was I was putting so much like importance on new things or my current conditions or the things I wanted to see in my life in order to feel like happiness, right? So here in Portland, I go around, like I go to the Starbucks, I go to like the little coffee shops and like the little donut shops or whatever, and I can feel joy in the moment. So when I'm in that present moment, yeah, I'm like, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing that needs to be done. But then when I like think a little bit deeper about, oh, like maybe it would be great if I felt like this, or maybe it would be great if the weather was like this. Like I start to know that it's time to maybe change my environment when I start to kind of hope for things that my environment can't possibly give me. And I'm trying to reconfigure the way I hope for things, not in such a way of like saying, oh, maybe if I moved here, I'd be happy. Or maybe if I like had this new job, I would be happier. Like
Mm.
from the books that I've been reading recently, it's like happiness always starts from within, not from outside. So if you are continuously looking for things or people or situations to make you happy, you will be looking for the rest of your life because things change all the
It's almost like that concept, the grass is always greener, right? On the other side of the fence. It's almost like that concept is like put into play that is so sneaky and so devious, but honestly still holds truth because, like, for example, in my situation, I moved here to South Austin. I haven't done anything in South Austin yet.
Isn't it always like that? You're like, I have this dream, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna always be out here, and then you move there and you're still the same bitch you were.
Yeah, I haven't changed my damn habits. And it's like, okay, the problem is not necessarily where I'm living. The problem is what I'm choosing to do. It is myself. Um, I definitely, completely 100% agree. I've definitely like recognized that since moving here this past month. Because I'm just like, the first 2 weeks I was like, oh, it's just because I moved here. I don't have time for anything. I'm still trying to settle into my apartment, da 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 da. I can't be settling into my apartment, in a year from now still.
Still settling in.
Like I've got to make some changes if I'm going to be happy. But I think, we've slightly talked about this. I feel like that's also like almost an earth sign or Capricorn trait of like being stubborn to not just make that small change or make the take those actions that are going to make you happier later on because of like your stubbornness, right? Because that's what I'm facing right now. Is I'm like I'd much rather just chill out and not do anything and like veg out, of course, because I'm like I feel mentally exhausted versus just taking the time 5 minutes to 10 minutes a day of putting something up and then looking at my environment as like a place of getting better and better every single day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I think what I am realizing, and also this is that full moon energy. Full moon in Gemini is calling for us to evaluate everyone.
I've already talked about air signs and my problem with air signs, and so like, ooh, the energy it's palpable. Like I was up till last night at 3 o'clock in the morning because I could not sleep.
I was up late too. I was up really late, and there's no excuse because I mean I've been traveling and I got back at like 3 a.m. yesterday and went to sleep at like 5:30 in the morning, and then I was like I'm gonna go to sleep early tonight. Still went to sleep around the same. I totally do. Oh my god, all the time.
I can tell you, I have the best intentions when I'm trying to change my environment, but I have the worst follow through. As a Capricorn, I feel, like I obviously have a perfectionist side that I'm realizing is playing a really huge part in my life that I didn't recognize before. But I'm realizing that, like, my follow through is so bad, and then it starts like a shame spiral from like Brene Brown's shame spiral, talking about vulnerability and trust and building things like that. That like I feel so bad that I didn't do the action because I feel like it's a direct reflection on me, and it's not. It's just I just didn't do it. I didn't get to it, and it's okay. Like no one really cares. It's just pressure I'm putting on myself, feeling bad about it for myself. Um, so yeah, I don't know if you relate. Am I out here on the limb? Is this me being vulnerable, just out here doing it all? Is this says right now.
um, no, I get what you're saying, and I have found that I do that. I'm trying to speak more in like the past tense because I don't want to perpetuate this into my future. After reading, this book that I'm reading about the law of attraction, I'm like, cutting it short. But what I found was there was an example in the book that I was reading where they said that you look at life like a buffet. So many people spend time being or feeling guilty about not wanting a dish at the buffet instead of just eating what they like at the buffet. Right? Like if I'm going to a restaurant, like I would never be like, oh, I feel guilty that I don't want the scrimps. No, bitch, I'd be like, what is it that I do want? And I order that and I'd be excited for when it comes. But we spend so much time feeling bad about not wanting the things we don't want or forcing ourselves to do things we don't want to do. It's like, ugh, I feel so bad for the French fries over there because no one's going to eat them. So I have to be the good person and eat them. Girl, no.
Yeah, that's literally it. That's it.
Like once I realized that, I was like, not me resonating with this so much because like so many times where I'm like, oh well, there's a thing that I want to do, and then I'm immediately like, oh, but what about what would my mom say, or what would this person think, or what would this person think, and it's akin to be like, you know what, I really want the creme brulee today, but ooh, my mom would feel so bad if I didn't get the carrot cake because she loves carrot cake. Is she not there eating? Like, all due respect, I love my mama, but like she's not the one who has to eat it. She's not the one who has to like process it by her like through her body. If she loves that, let her love that. If she loves that, I love that even more for her. But no, for me in this moment, if I keep beating myself up and feeling guilty about like, for example, if I just want to veg out and I'm not feeling inspired to like, do all the home building stuff, because I literally did that last month too. I had to like reconfigure everything. I waited until like I was like, no, I actually really want to do this today. Versus like when I try to like pull myself out of bed to do it, girl, it'll take times longer. Because like that's the law of attraction. That's like how it works. Like if I'm excited about doing the task, like I am resonating or vibrating at the same frequency as the task that I'm excited to do. But if I don't want to do that, I'm resonating more with the resistance and the not wanting to do it. So it gets so much harder to do it. So yeah, so I'm feeling that, and I'm also seeing how it plays into the changing of environment kind of question or conversation, because like we're trying so hard to change the things around us, outside of us, without first like coming to terms with like who we are and what we have going on internally. Because like it's exactly like you said, everything that you were doing at your previous apartment, why in the hell would everything suddenly change with a new apartment if you haven't made the conscious decision to do different things?
Yeah.
Well, So
another aspect of that I think is I also like overextend myself constantly, and I don't, and I'm learning more of like my level for like activity or like doing things or whatever that takes from me is a lot smaller than I wish it was. And I'm recognizing now that like, oh, actually I should try to move that to a different day. I shouldn't try to do all these activities all at once because it's just going to wear me down and I won't want to do any of them. And that's what's been happening. It's like the roadblock I keep on hitting is that like I don't want to do one of them because I'm exhausted from the day before or my day of and everything because I'm doing too much. And especially in like a society that, it feels like you have to go, go, go. You have to be that person, got to be out there. You have to be the extrovert that's enjoying life. You need to be doing something. You need to be hustling, bustling your butt off here in your like 20s, and experiencing life. When, it's fine just to be in your pajamas for a whole weekend.
exactly. Like it's fine to do the things that you like and not feel guilty about not wanting the other things at the buffet of life.
Exactly.
That's totally fine. And if you are coming at it from a perspective of like, well, I want to at least try it. I want to at least experiment with that thing. Experiment when it makes sense. Experiment when you're excited about doing it. there's really no, we're all going to kick the bucket one day, right? Like we all know that it's inevitable, but there's no timeline and there's no check life or check mark that you have to, do this. And this is how I know I've left a legacy and I've lived a good life is I have 40 check marks and, that other girl over there only got 23. So that's how you know her life sucked. But it's like,
Yeah.
no, like if you look back at your life and you're happy with the things that you've done, even if it's like not a long list, which like long list is it's just comparative. It's comparing it to something else. Because if I didn't know the length of someone else's list, I wouldn't think my list was short. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
and I think that it's also a little bit of that comparison too when you're thinking about like, oh, well, this is what the Joneses got going on. This is what my homegirl got going on. This is what my cousin got going on. So why am I not like that? I should change my environment. I should be more like them. But the happiest people. This sounds mean, but like the happiest people are not checking for you. They're not checking for you and what you got going on and saying, "Oh, I'm so happy," but like, I wonder how I can be happier than XYZ. I
Yeah.
don't think they give a fuck about you. Respectfully, they
No one
don't.
cares. Yeah.
So it's like, well, we spend so much time caring about how we look in relation to other people, or oh, I want to be in a relationship with this person, but oh, I'm not attractive enough for them, or blah blah blah. Girl, if they're in your face, they're in your DMs, they're trying to get with you, and you talk yourself down to believing that oh, there's something wrong with them because XYZ. No, there's something wrong with you because you don't see your own beauty, you don't see your own power, and you think that anyone being attracted to you is fucked up, they're weird, they're strange. So you're only gonna attract weird, fucked up, strange people. Like
Yeah.
you're validating the things that you believe. Like so, I don't know that it just gets me so worked up. Like when I realize like how much of like it's never about the environment because I could give my life experience that I'm living to a person that's been dreaming about only having the experience that I'm having, and they would be happy with it. But it's because that's what they want. It starts internally. It's not about my conditions. It's not like, oh, my conditions are objectively bad, so there's no way I can enjoy it. No, there's someone else who really, really, really wants the conditions that I'm in. If I'm not happy with my conditions, it's up to me to change internally before like blaming everything outside of me for my unhappiness. You know?
Yeah, and I think that comes with, going back to like a sense of self-awareness. I think a lot of that comes down to like how aware are you that like you do have the capacity to change what you want to change when you want to change it on your own timeline, and then like recognizing that, your environment is a product of what you're putting out in the world. It's
Amen.
it's not like things do happen to you, and I agree that things happen, but like you can take the loss and focus on the positive. You know what I mean? And say, well, that happened, yes, but this is what I learned from it, or this is what I'm doing now to like make myself even better than what I was, or it's just like, they say that in like training, pain is weakness leaving the body. So like, if you feel like you have to go through the pain to get stronger, Lord, the universe will send it to you. You will go through the pain because that's the belief that you have that you're putting out there to get better.
Periodic table. That's like it's just I don't know. I feel like when we realize that our beliefs, the things that we expect to happen, and the way that we feel all culminate to create our life experience, then we have more ownership over changing our life experience to be a reflection of what we're feeling internally. Like, it's like what you're saying. So, as a kid, to kind of like put a little bit of vulnerability on the table as
Ooh,
well.
let's see it. We love it.
I went through a pretty traumatic experience, and what I kept doing for the next, that happened when I was like 8, for the next like 17 or so years was replaying that in my head, like thinking about, oh, this is what happened to me. This is how everyone feels about it. This is how my mom now sees me because this is what happened to me. And that event happened like 16, 17 years ago. So me reliving it is keeping that experience alive. And it's not moving on and deciding I want to have a different experience. I want to be a different person. I want to feel differently about the life that I'm living so far. And I think we do that so often to ourselves, where one bad thing happens, like what you said, or it could be 10 bad things that happen. It doesn't fucking matter the number. But we keep reliving that bad thing that happens and then adding on to like the bad things cinematic universe where it's like, oh, but like, this happened to me and this is why nobody ever, fucking likes me, and this is why I didn't get that job that one time. You just keep giving it power and strengthening it instead of just saying, you know what, it's something that happened to me. It doesn't make me feel good when I think about it. So I'm gonna just not think about it anymore. I can decide to make peace with the fact that it has happened, and I can decide that I want to feel good today, that I want to feel happy today. And just that decision in and of itself will start to attract situations that are going to validate the way you want to feel. But you also have to believe that you can feel good. Because there are some people who walking around, it's like all the hustle grind set where it's like, yeah, I don't sleep. I eat spreadsheets because I'm always working. Like, uh,
Yeah.
like if you believe that sleep is for the weak and you will be less successful, you're going to lose everything you have if you sleep, then guess what, babe? You are totally right. So don't sleep. Keep working. Meanwhile, me, I will take my ass to sleep. I will enjoy my sleep. I'll enjoy my beautiful sheets because I spent a lot of money on them. And I'll enjoy my bed because I spent a lot of money on it. And I'll be happy with what I have. And I'll wake up in the morning and do my job. And then I'll go back to sleep the next night. Because no, my worth isn't determined by how many hours I sleep or how hard I'm working in comparison to everybody else. Like it, this is now delving into a conversation about worthiness. Like, are you worthy?
Yeah.
Are you happy? Are you worthy of changing your environment? Which I think is often something people feel as well. Like they don't feel like they deserve the happiness that comes with living a life that's in alignment to what they want.
I mean, let me tell you. So I was in a coaching session with my current job and everything about 2 weeks ago, and at a coaching session with my team, the coach brought up this concept of that people have like 1,000 and something thoughts a day. Like it was like I want to say it was like um, 5 to 10,000 thoughts. I want to say it might have been a lot more. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's not the point. But the point was, you said that 80% of them are negative. So if you think about that, right, that means the majority of your thoughts are negative thoughts, regardless of like what they're negative about. It could be negative about you, your environment, the person next to you, Joe, Jane, whoever. You know what I mean? But then he also said this other quote that I've heard before, but in this context, it kind of plays different. It's like beliefs becomes thoughts, thoughts become actions, actions become truths in your reality. So if you're thinking about that, you're going all the way back to that root. 80% of your thoughts are negative for the majority of people. That means people are mostly believing, you know what I mean, that like negative things because they're all rooted in negativity, right? Their beliefs are negative, so inherently their thoughts are negative, which means their actions are going to be negative and perpetuate negativity and negative actions, negative biases, to the point to where they create this whole entire reality, their environment, which is just negative. And that is a scary concept. You know what I mean? That like we are out here creating these things because we can't help ourselves to like quiet that monkey mind we all have and to solve it. We all have the power to do that. We all have the potential to do that, and it really does come down to, what you were saying about that belief. Do you believe that you deserve to have a healthy environment? Do you believe that you can change that? And that's an aspect of like self-awareness, that even knowing that you have those beliefs, because some people just inherently think it and they can't explain it, right? And then it also goes down to of like, do you inherently believe that you can change the 80%? Because I do. I believe I can change my 80% to be a lot smaller of a number, or I can have days where I have no negative thoughts. I believe that I can do that. So it's like you have to put those thoughts out there. You have to do the work to change those beliefs, because then it's like the reverse, right? You have to have reality. You have to take those actions to have those thoughts to make that belief change. And it's can be terrifying, but that's also like what putting in work on yourself does. And I think that's an aspect of like changing your environment is willing to change your belief system to some degree.
Hmm. And I think that it's like, yes, like you have to now believe, like if you can make yourself believe that no matter where I am, who I'm with, what I'm doing, I will be happy and I will have a great day. Like that is one of the most powerful things that you could believe, because then you no
Yeah.
longer have to like feel the discontent in your environment, which is not about your environment, it's about you. It's about you not liking the experience you're having in your own body. So you're projecting it instead of saying, well, why do I feel this way? It's like because you have a bunch of like negative thoughts that are always happening about this and that and the third, instead of like actually feeling how those thoughts feel in your body. So it's like that self-awareness. Also, like, how does it feel when I think this thing? Because I think so many people don't realize like how powerful their thoughts can be. Like, for example, when we remember something and we cringe, it's a physical full body.
You said that, and I thought, and I had a memory, and I was like, ooh.
You know what I mean? But it's like the thing that's crazy about it is like whatever made you cringe in that moment is not real. It's literally not even here happening to you in this moment. And I think that's one of the best examples of the fact of like you don't necessarily need to see the things that you want to see in your life in order to feel happy. Like you can just think about that shit. You could be like, I want to. Oh, remember this time where I got like this really, really like delicious dessert. Oh, and it tasted so good. And the first time I had that first bite, I was like, bitch, I'm coming here every single day. Like you can think about the things that make you happy in order to have like that positive emotional response to it, instead of just continuously observing the things that you don't like. Like for example, I was on a flight and there was a little girl who was like crying and stuff like that. And because I have a younger brother, like I just don't feel affected when babies cry. It's kind of like, okay, whatever. Like, you know, they don't think that
Yeah.
talk. So it's like,
You're just
you
used to it. Like,
know what
it's,
I mean?
yeah.
And so I'm not um, angered by that. But my flight was like delayed by like an hour and 40 minutes. So we were sitting in the like cab taxi area of like the runway, and I was like, oh my God, I want to be out of here. I like was so mad because I was so hyper aware of the time ticking by, and it felt like the time was like going slowly in terms of fixing the plane, but going quickly in terms of objective time because I wanted to be back here by a specific time because I ordered some shit and I wanted to pick it up. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
So I was so aware of the things that weren't making me happy. And I just had a moment like, let me just kind of retreat into my head for a second and think about a memory that does feel really good when I think about it. Or think about something I want to happen in the future that would, if it happened, I'd be like, oh my God, that'd be so exciting. And I did that and I just kind of retreated into my thoughts and was just imagining. It's not like this crazy, you know, concept that, oh, only the best people can do it. It's called your imagination, babe. Anyone can do it. So going into your imagination, thinking about the things you want, and I was feeling so good that when there was an announcement played, it was kind of like I like woke up out of like a nap or something. Like, oh shit, I'm still here, huh? That's crazy because I wasn't in that physical environment observing the things that I don't like. I was in this other environment like thinking about the things that make me happy to the point where I was almost falling asleep. That's why like that like announcement like woke me up because I was like just a couple minutes ago I was mad, I was tense, I was like all clenched up like damn I hate this goddamn plane. But I went into my head, focused on the things that I did like, and it didn't matter where I was. Wasn't physically there anymore. I was in a
Mhm.
more desirable, happy place to the point where I was gonna fall asleep because I was so calm, you know. And I think that that is such a superpower. Like, yeah, you could fly, you could be invisible, but like, can you make yourself happy? Can you do that, girl? Like, that is an actual superpower that I think more people. It would be great if more people would cultivate that, but if
It's
that's
almost
not,
like,
don't take it.
yeah, it's almost like I would equate that to like people who really enjoy reading that they get quote unquote lost in a book. You know what I mean? It's
Yes,
that experience of like you can, I don't want to say disassociate, but it's you can,
daydream.
yeah, daydream and experience something and imagine something that's exciting, that takes you out of where you are, and that's like engaging to a really high level, to where it's not like you forget about your body, but it's like that's not the main focus. The main focus is this great experience that's happening inside of you. You know what I mean? That feels like that's kind of like the same thing you're talking about.
It's exactly that. And so many times we get in trouble in school for daydreaming. It's like, oh,
Oh
I'm like,
yeah,
focus. Ma'am, the board's up here. Ma'am, you're going to pay attention when I speak, or we're going to call mom. We're going to call mom. Like, that happened so much as a kid. Like, you don't learn about that very healthy way of, doing emotional regulation of like, hey, I'm not super happy or like enjoying the situation that I'm in right now. I'm not becoming another person. And I'm not like, oh, I'm flying or whatever. So you could do that in your daydreams if that's gonna make you feel happy or whatever. But when I daydream, it's like, oh my god, I remember like this like super fun memory when I went out and I did this, or like I literally kind of just remember the things that I read in books that make me happy, or like concepts where I was like, yes, preach, preach, preach. You know what I mean? So it is such a healthy way of doing emotional regulation by deciding that no matter what situation you're in, you're going to be happy. And some people might be listening to this and say, well, isn't it more practical to like, be in the moment and like, even if it's like a bad thing that you're looking at, like still be like happy with the things that you're looking at? It's like, once you get to the point where you don't let the environment around you dictate your emotional state, do your thing, girl. Do your thing. That is like the peak. That's where you
yeah,
want to be. Most people are not there yet when they first start like trying to do emotional regulation. So it would be better to, for lack of a better word, divert your gaze. Stop looking at stuff that you don't like. Like the people who get mad about the babies crying will just keep like looking at the baby mad as hell. Start like, like, oh, why is it going up an octave? It's getting worse. You're attracting more of the negative shit you don't
yeah,
like because you're so hyper aware of the things that you don't like. So it's like with my job, the first bad thing that happened, the second that I started focusing on that, it started happening more and more and more and more to the point where you're like, you know what, this is my proof. I need to get out of here because this job sucks. No, I'm hyper aware of the things that I don't like instead of focusing on the things I do like about my job and like about my life and about my relationships and everything. And it's just about where do you choose to focus your attention and your time, and how do you feel about the things that you are choosing to focus on. Like that's like the key.
yeah. And I think like another aspect of that too is like taking that a step forward. It's like, so once you like are aware of the things that you're enjoying and everything, that's what you take action and lean into, right? You, if you're like, action is I love doing this, so I'm going to do this. That's a higher vibrational action and energy
Yes.
that's going on versus saying I don't like this, so I'm going to avoid that. You know what I mean? That negativity really drops you down and doesn't make you feel good, right? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
like you're avoiding, that takes emotional stress and like the rest, and like you're jumping around and everything, versus just like having fun doing the thing that you like to do. That's really what it feels like, like just
Yeah.
coming off of this is like, so when you're changing your environment, if you're changing the environment for like, oh, I'm changing it because I don't like this, that's not really going to help. It's like if you're changing the environment, oh, I'm changing my environment because I like this more. I love this thing and I want to do more of this thing. That's what you're going to start attracting more of in order for it to come to you, to make it happen, allow it to happen, and it's going to happen.
And it feels good when you think about life that way. Like even when you were like talking about that example, and like I thought about something that I want to change, like, oh yes, I would love more of that thing. Like that is just, it's taking inspired action and choosing to do things, more of the things that make you happy versus trying to run away from the things that don't make you happy. Because like, for example, oh my god, like I have to like get up in the morning and I have to do my morning routine and it takes so much time. Like you could look at it like that, or you can say,
Yeah.
what's my favorite part about my morning routine? I really like my skincare. Why don't I take a little extra time today to just like really massage like the creams into my face? Like that would be great. And as you're doing that, you're like, this feels so great. This feels so nice. And then you move on to the next thing. You're like, I want to keep feeling that good emotion. So another thing that you could do if you're looking to change your environment is actually, and I know it's going to sound counterintuitive. You might think like, oh, no, it's going to perpetuate my environment. No, I promise you it's not. Is look at the things in your environment that you do like, things you like a lot. Like for example, one of the things I like about Portland is that my neighborhood is really safe. Like I don't have to like walk outside and worry about someone like shanking me or whatever. Like that's not my
That's
reality
big.
at all. You know what I mean? So if I focus on like I love the feeling of safety that I have in my home. I love the feeling of safety that I have in my neighborhood, in my city, and just feeling so happy that I'm so safe at home. Like I'll just keep getting little reminders and more of that safety and more of that like happiness and contentness. But like if I focus on, man, I really don't like how my apartment is like surrounded by like crows every day or some shit like that, then every single time them damn crows come, I will be hyper aware of them being there. But now I'm kind of like, ooh, there must be a witch in the building. Hey, turn up, she's acting all these crows to her or something. And I make it funny, I make it facetious. But if you focus on the things that you do like, no matter whatever the situation is, like, and this is like easier said than done for many a topics when you first start. Like, I went into like, oh, so should I look at people getting COVID and like think about what I do like? Like, actually, I would say I would be happy that I don't have COVID. I'm like, I am so happy that my body is healthy. Or if I did have it, I'm so happy that I've recovered and I'm feeling good. And like focus on like the happiness that you feel that you're not in that situation. Like that would be a better thing to do. Like, oh, this person passed away. And when that happens, oftentimes you find people leaning into and loving on the people that are still around versus like, damn, that person passed away. What if I'm gonna pass away next? Like, girl, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
reel it back. That doesn't feel good. What feels good is to say, I'm gonna really appreciate my relationships a lot more. I'm gonna spend more time with the people that I love. And that's how we see that evidence of like you heal that much faster when you focus on the good parts. Focus on what you can. Even if it's one thing in your life that you're really, really happy about, make that be the thing you focus on the most. Focus on that more. And then more things will keep coming to you that are in alignment, that feel that way. And that would feel a lot better. So that would actually be my advice on this topic. If I can just boil it down to something really simple, if you want to change your environment or you believe something in your environment is the reason why you are unhappy, I would analyze the thoughts that you have around that topic and start looking at what is the thing that you actually really like about that topic or your life in general. If you're so deep into the bad feelings that you can't even think about something you like about the topic, what do you like about life in general? And just focus on that and focus on feeling good about that. And eventually things in your life will change and be more of a reflection of the things that make you happy. So, yeah.
I agree. I think that's like a great way. I think another a way of thinking about it is that, it's easy to create a pros and cons list, but instead of just creating a pros and cons list, just create a pros list. You don't need the cons. You know what I mean? Because that's just going to make the divide even clearer. Instead, just create a cons list of all the things you love. It's kind of like what they tell you, right? Of like people who have body issues, for example, they say to stare at your body and find one thing every day that you absolutely love about it. You know what I mean? And write that down. And that's a way to start growing and finding that love for yourself and in your body and everything. And I think that can play into this conversation about your environment. Just take a day and either list all the things you possibly can, and so that way you become hyper aware of the things that you like. You know what I mean? And that means that like it doesn't mean that you can't change out that clock that's annoying to you. It doesn't mean that
It doesn't mean that at all, yeah.
you can't move. It doesn't mean you shouldn't find a new job. What it means is that like instead of you trying to run away from something or cover something up, you're focused on building that love and building that positivity that you already have. And that's like really what I feel like it boils down to is focusing on that. Um, of course, like you said, it's easier said than done. I am not perfect at this, but I believe I can be perfect at this. You know what I mean? Like I believe that this is something that I can get better at, and I know that I will get better at it for sure.
Love it. Yeah, like it's essentially that good thoughts magnify bad thoughts also magnified. So if you can make the choice, choose the good thoughts. And that's that on that, honey.
Well, Renee, I feel like we've come to that time of the show again. I want to say, thank you, of course, everyone for listening to us. And if you're hearing us on anywhere on Spotify, anywhere you can listen to a podcast, we're also on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching us. But the conversation doesn't have to end here. We do want to hear from you in the comments, wherever you're watching this, or, wherever. Feel free to leave a response, a comment to us, because we want to know, what are you trying to lean more into in your environment? What is that positive thing that you're leaning into in your environment? So thank you again. And Renee, do you have anything you want to say?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. Other than that, just make sure you follow us on social media platforms. And as Kaiden said, we're 2 Caps and a Coffee on YouTube, 2Caps_coffee everywhere else. And we look forward to talking to you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.